Hi, I'm Brianna.
And I'm Akira.
And you're watching
Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, I hate to report bad news, but it seems we have a little bit of bad news. I mean, this is not the end, but this is a very bad sign. The WBA, they gave Gennady Golovkin and Danny Jacobs 30 days to work out a deal. And now we're down to about 4 days left. That's not a good sign at all. Because if you think about it, when Golovkin negotiated with Kell Brook, that deal was done within the first 2 days. And when it comes to this Danny Jacobs situation, we're almost looking at 30 days in. Now, if they don't come to an agreement within the 30 days, then the fight goes to a purse bid. If the fight goes to a purse bid, then the champion, I guess what would be considered the real champion, because they're both WBA champions, but Golovkin is the super WBA champion. So I'm assuming he would get the mandatory 75% split and Danny Jacobs would only get 25% split. If the fight goes to a purse bid, the fight is not going to happen, because the whole reason why they haven't come to an agreement right now is because Danny Jacobs wants more money. So obviously he's not going to take a purse bid split, right? So we have a serious problem. We have a serious problem. And you know, when it comes to Abel Sanchez, I don't agree with too much of what Abel Sanchez says, but when a person makes sense, or when a person is right, I have to give him credit. And I will say that if this fight doesn't come to fruition, Abel Sanchez, he was right. Abel Sanchez, I gotta give him credit, because he told me, he said he didn't believe when Danny Jacobs was saying, I see something, and you know, I seen everything I needed to see, and I want to fight Golovkin next. When I told Abel Sanchez that Danny Jacobs said that, Abel Sanchez, he said he still did not believe that Danny Jacobs would take the fight next. And it's almost starting to look like Abel Sanchez, he was right. He was dead on the money. Abel Sanchez, he used an analogy that was very fitting for this situation with Golovkin and Danny Jacobs. Abel Sanchez, he said, if I'm trying to sell my Tahoe and I try to sell it for $100,000, how bad do I really want to sell it? Do I really want to sell it if I'm selling it for $100,000? And that is a perfect analogy for this situation right here. Because the question is, if Danny Jacobs really wants the fight, he's going to put his price out there. And if he can't get his price, he takes the best offer. If you've ever been on websites like Craigslist, Let Go, or you've ever sold anything, that's exactly what people do. You put a price tag on it. And if you can't sell it for your price, then you take the best offer, right? This is exactly how it works. You know, I had already reserved a little bit of doubt when it came to this fight as well. You know, I was very optimistic that this fight will come to fruition. But I told you guys before, I was always a little concerned because of what Danny Jacobs' manager was saying. Danny Jacobs' manager, he was talking about Danny Jacobs really wanting this fight, but then he said something that made me say, oh boy, I don't know. When I heard Danny Jacobs' manager say, Danny Jacobs, he really wants this fight, but we're not gonna take this fight for change. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he said. He said, we're not gonna take this fight for chump change, and if we don't get the fight that Danny Jacobs deserves, then we'll probably just take the fight 3 or 4 fights down the line when the money is better, when Danny is going to get the money that he really deserves. You know, when he said that, that told me one thing. It told me that Team Jacobs, they are not willing to take this fight by all means necessary. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Danny Jacobs, he should just bow down and take whatever they give him. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is what Danny Jacobs has to realize is if he beats Gennady Golovkin, then he could demand whatever type of money he wants if they were to have a possible rematch. Even if they don't have a rematch, Danny Jacobs' stock goes way up because he became the first man to beat Gennady Golovkin, right? I mean, it's just like the Floyd Mayweather-Oscar De La Hoya situation all over again. When Floyd Mayweather fought against Oscar De La Hoya was the cash cow. Floyd Mayweather went into that fight, he did not get the money that he wanted. Oscar De La Hoya damn near took 80% of all of the money. Floyd Mayweather had to meet Oscar De La Hoya's demands. But Floyd Mayweather said it's okay, because when I beat Oscar De La Hoya, then I become the new cash cow king. And that's exactly what transpired. And that's the way Danny Jacobs and his people, they need to look at this Gennady Golovkin situation. If you beat Gennady Golovkin, you become the star. You become the star. And if Gennady Golovkin wants a rematch, if he were to lose to you, then guess what? Now Golovkin needs you more than you need him, right? Because you've already beat Golovkin. So you don't have to fight him a second time. Now you could say to Golovkin and Golovkin's people, look, if you guys want to avenge that loss, if you want a rematch that bad, you guys have to pay me what I am worth now. If not, we move on. We move on because guess what? I've already beat you, so I'm happy to walk away 1-0. So you either give me the money that I deserve or there is no rematch. That's how Danny Jacobs should play it. He should play it the exact way Floyd Mayweather played it against Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, why would you risk allowing someone else to be the first person to possibly beat Gennady Golovkin when you could be the person to do it? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys right now, and I really hope that I'm wrong, but I have a feeling the way negotiations are going, we are not gonna get this fight. Like I said one more time, they had 30 days to negotiate a deal, and now they're down to like 4 days. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. And now Gennady Golovkin's people, they're gonna have to start looking at other opponents like they did when Chris Eubanks fell out. Speaking of the Chris Eubanks situation, I believe that is a really good option for Gennady Golovkin, assuming the Danny Jacobs fight falls apart. I truly believe that Chris Eubanks Sr., the man who was really responsible for that fight not coming to fruition, he has to regret how negotiations transpired last time. And I believe that they would be far more open if they were to renegotiate a deal. So that's an option on the table for Gennady Golovkin. You also still have Erislandy Lara, who has been calling out Golovkin forever. You have the guy they're calling the White Mike Tyson, Avondale Kurzitse, another great prospect who just knocked out another undefeated prospect in Antoine Douglas. So there are some good guys out there who want to fight Gennady Golovkin. I really don't know what happened to Toriano Johnson, but I still believe Toriano Johnson, that would have been Gennady Golovkin's toughest fight, because Toriano Johnson is somewhat of a Marcos Maidana of the middleweight division. but he's a lot more skilled than a Marcos Maidana. But I don't know what happened to Toriano Johnson. He had an injury, and it must have been a bad injury because he hasn't been in the ring since. So we'll see what happens. There's definitely some options for Gennady Golovkin. On top of the options that I just mentioned, he still has options at 168 as well. We know that everyone wants to fight him at 168. So let's see what he does. Let's see who he fights next if there isn't going to be a showdown with Danny Jacobs. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.